Welcome to What the Hill is Happening, City on a Hill's monthly informational and formational podcast. This podcast is where you can come to find out what is happening at our church and the why behind the happenings. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome into the February episode of What the Hill is Happening. Glad to have you in here. Joining us first is Brian Duncan and a special guest that we're going to introduce to you here at the start of the show. Brian, tell us about George.
My replacement, George Sparks. George has been at the church for about 7 or 8 years and has been facilitating groups, and we just feel like God's dropped George in our lap to be able to take on freedom groups. And I think he's going to do an amazing job. Even just being on so far this year, it's been great. Just a meeting we had today was incredible, just getting started. And so we're excited to have you join the staff, but not only that, but join the team and take on this challenge.
That's exactly right. And just to clarify for those of you who are going, Brian is leaving? He's not leaving. He is just doing other things as well. So you'll still have general oversight over freedom groups.
Yeah, right.
And then you're doing some other stuff in addition to that.
You know, as staff members, we wear a lot of different hats.
We do.
And so, which is pretty cool. And I'm just putting on a little bit more of those hats than normal. And George is taking on kind of a role that Vanessa played, last year,
right.
and now is taking on that. So I'm excited. It gives me a chance to do some other stuff.
Good. Well, George, let's hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your favorite item on the Taco Bell menu? What's your favorite band?
I appreciate the welcome, and I'm
so he just glides right over. That's how you know he fits in here. He doesn't even entertain my dumb questions.
I'm glad to be part of the team. The Freedom Group ministry has been very impactful for me since I've been a part of City on a Hill. I've grown spiritually through it very, very deeply, uncovered a lot of things that were false beliefs in a couple of these programs, and I'm now very much looking forward to taking on some of that responsibility that you have had and growing in it myself. I'm very excited about it.
Talk a little bit about what you have been doing over the last 6 or 7 years employment-wise, because I think that plays a big role in your skill sets here.
Sure. Yes, I've been managing a sober living for men in West Fort Worth. Yeah. Guys that would come out of treatment would come to us for 30, 60, 90 days and get their foundation before they go back to the real world.
Yeah. That's an incredibly, I think, helpful skill set. Certainly very familiar with 12 steps, not only from that, but have you ever practiced them yourself?
Absolutely. I'm in recovery myself from alcohol and drug addiction. Just over 6 years sober.
Cool.
And been very involved in 12-step programming, and I love how our church really embraces the 12 steps and promotes that within our own support groups within church. Yeah. So I'm excited about taking everything that I've worked with in the 12 steps out there into church now, because we all know the 12 steps were rooted in a Christian principles. Yeah. So I am really happy to bring those two together and work with folks here at the church.
One of the things Brian and I have talked about through the years, and we really feel like now is kind of the right time to begin moving more intentionally in this direction, particularly with George, is City on a Hill has been a site location for AA, NA, OA, SA, all of the different, there's several of them through the years that we've partnered with that come to our church. They're not City on a Hill run groups. They're their own groups. They just utilize our space for their meetings. And it's like they're right there. They're right on our property. We are doing so many things that will minister to them that they're probably not even aware of. And so one of the hopes that I think we've had for a long time is that somebody like George would come along that could eventually start intentionally working into connecting those groups and seeing that environment as more or less a field for evangelism, to be able to share the help, hope, and healing of Jesus. Some of those people that come in there, they're just looking to get sober, and they begin working the steps, and they begin learning about this higher power. And we want to come in and go, hey, that higher power has a name, and his name is Jesus. And so,
one of the things that we've talked about, and I've heard from many people in secular groups, is that they want to have their spiritual life
Yep.
and their recovery life together.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I feel like our church does
Yes.
so well
Yes.
is, as George said, we don't violate biblical principles, and yet we stay within guidelines in recovery as well.
Yeah.
And so that mix, I think, is what makes us unique as a church.
It's such a weird thing talking with people that I've known through the years that are in recovery, like firmly in recovery for years sometimes, and are plugged in firmly into a local church, and yet people in the local church have no real connection to that recovery side of them. That is so strange to me.
It really is. One of the things I think that has been so cool is over the last couple of years, you've been starting to filter in what I would call freedom group questions, heart questions within the Bible studies. Yeah. And it forces good biblical folks that aren't in recovery to start to answer those heart level questions about what I believe.
Yes.
What I use as coping mechanisms, different things like that. We all do it to some level.
Yeah.
Whether it's sports, whether it's eating, whether it's work.
Yeah, one of the things that we've tried to do on one end within Christianity is sort of use 12-step language in a sort of Christian format, and then also to use Christian language and connect it to the 12-step format. And what I'm trying to do in those Bible studies is really demonstrate, without saying it explicitly, that there is no distinction really between these two things. That if you're really studying the Bible and you're allowing the Bible to interrogate your heart through the ministry of the Holy Spirit, these are not recovery questions. These are biblical questions.
Yeah, that's right.
These are just questions that are important for the formation of any individual. And so, very exciting to have you on board. And why don't y'all talk a little bit about the Wednesday night groups that are coming up?
Yeah, so
I guess are starting now.
Yeah. So all the groups start on the 31st of January. So it's not too late to sign up. If you want to see if there's some open spots, go to the Church Center app, go to our website, and there should be some still advertising on the groups that are still open. Our goal is to get 15 people in those groups and then close it down. We want to create an atmosphere of safety, and so go check those out. I think we've got like 10 groups starting this session this semester, and some are co-ed, some are men, some are women's, some are marriage, and some are parenting. So check those out.
Yeah.
There's so many groups, and really I think we're trying to cover a broad array. If you haven't taken Life Change for Every Individual, that's a good open group. Breaking the Cycle of Harmful Family Relationships, that's a good group to start in.
Yeah.
Those are just incredible. But if you need something like Fearless, I'm telling you, that's going to be dynamite.
Yeah.
George, I think you're leading one of those groups this semester, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm Breaking the Cycle of Hurtful Family Relationships. I have done that group several times, and then co-led, and then led it, and it's been a very moving experience for me to see people work through some of their hurts from their relationships with their family members from the past and even current day. And again, I mentioned before the misbeliefs that I've carried and people carry from that are not biblical. We picked up just by living in dysfunctional families.
Yeah.
So when people say things like, "Well, blood is thicker than water," what would a group like that say in response?
Here he goes.
Yeah, here he goes. I know. These are such important groups. They're so practical. They're so needed for so many of our people. And so, again, if you have not ever taken a freedom group, there's some really good ones, kind of start here groups to begin with. If you have more specific things that you need help with. Fearless, for those of you who are not aware of what that is a group that actually was put together by our church's founding pastor, Dr. James Reeves, that covers the sexual abuse of both women and men. There's a women's group and a men's group. Are we doing both women and men?
Yeah, we are. And so the men's group, which is really cool, really deals with trauma.
Yes.
At any level.
Yes.
And it's been so impactful to watch these guys walk through this.
It is a very
And
good
we'll try to
group.
fit as many guys in there as we can.
Yeah.
The women's Fearless is going. Shelter from the Storm is going. Check out the different descriptions online.
Yeah.
Okay? And you'll see those descriptions. If you have any questions, don't call me, call George, okay?
That's
and
right.
So, what a great transition
What
for
a
me
great
to
transition.
be able to...
And that's on the Church Center app. So if you have that, those groups will be open through, the first 2 weeks of February?
Yeah, we try to keep them open for those first 2 weeks, but then we'll close those down. So
Yeah, so by the time you're seeing this, you still have a good week and a half
Yep.
or so to get into one of those groups. And that's for the closed groups. The open groups are open year-round.
right, yeah, you'll notice we'll get some flyers out called care groups.
Yeah.
The care groups are going to stay open. So like an open 12-step for women, open 12-step for men, prodigal parent, divorce care, grief share. Those are all going to be going all the time. And so check those out. That'll be another
That's awesome.
Another opportunity as well.
And then additionally to the freedom groups on Wednesday nights, we do have the Life Bible study that's meeting there. We've just started Exodus.
Yeah.
We have
Bible recap, too.
Bible recap with Sherma, who was on the episode last. So actually, both of them last episode, Charlie and Sherma,
Yeah.
kind of represent. Sherma does both. She leads one on Sunday morning. Charlie leads a Bible study on Sunday morning. But on Wednesday, we have one of those Life Bible studies that's going through Exodus as well. Same time, 6:45. And then the Bible recap does meet as well. If you're interested in what I am going to be doing for the future on Wednesday nights, I'm going to actually be talking about that in the third segment. So stick around. We'll talk more about that here in just a little while.
What a good segue, man.
You like that?
Yeah, that was good.
Anything else to know about George? What is your favorite band, out of curiosity? This is kind of a...
Oh, wow. There's Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
There's the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And I'll go deep here, Depeche Mode.
Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I love Depeche
Yes.
Mode. But interesting fun fact about Pastor Derek, my first concert ever was the Rolling Stones.
Wow.
It was one heck of a lineup. It was Matchbox 20 opened, and no one knew who they were. Their first single, Push, came out like 2 months later. So they were just kind of a nobody.
Right.
That there was like maybe 10% of the stadium showed up for them. And then Dave Matthews Band, and then the Smashing Pumpkins, and then the Rolling Stones. It was at Texas Motor Speedway like 1998, I think. Wow. And
That's a lineup.
It's kind of like, it's kind of great, and it's also sort of sad because like every concert after that is just below. It's downhill. It's downhill from there. So coming up next, we have our community pastor, Chris Cunnington, joining us on the show to talk about Send Relief and the mission efforts that we're going to be making this year. So stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the next segment, and we are joined here with Chris Cunnington, the community pastor, the outreach extraordinaire, the evangelism expert.
Man,
talk about-
I need to come around to your house more often.
You like that?
Yeah.
All the titles. Tell us a little bit about Send Relief and this kind of partnership that we have with them. We did some things with them last year, but doing more things this
Yeah.
year, and
Yeah.
tell the people about it.
Yeah, so we're a Southern Baptist church, shock horror.
Yes,
For those
yes.
of you who didn't know that listen to the podcast.
Please
and-
don't unsubscribe.
And so the International Mission Board has kind of two arms of the Southern Baptist. So they have North America, and then they have International. And a few years ago, they were not kind of working hand in hand together with short-term trips. So Send Relief became their compassion mission trip arm of both the North America and International efforts. So yeah, last year we partnered with them. We took a trip to Puerto Rico. They have different focuses, the different trips. So Puerto Rico is a lot of crisis response.
Yep.
So we got to go and help. We thought we were going to get to go and help rebuild homes that had been damaged. We actually built from scratch a home.
Wow.
And they built it on top of the old home. The old home was a concrete kind of garage. And they said, we're going to make that the foundation. And they just built a home on top. And
Wow.
so it was really cool. We
Yeah.
got to spend time with that family that was going to benefit from that. Some prayer walking. Got to do some evangelism. Just a great time. And that is really from high school up. And it's an intergenerational trip. We're going to do that again here in June. And so we're going to get that going again. But for our middle school kids, we wanted them to have a chance to come alongside the church. So we're going to add another trip. We're going to go to New Orleans.
Nice.
Yes. So we're going to drive. We're going to get into 15-passenger vans, drive the 8 hours. And it's a little bit of a different focus, not so much crisis response. Well, who knows between now and then
Never know.
what this crazy world of weather might do. Hopefully nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to curse New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah.
But hopefully we're going to get the chance to do a lot of evangelism, ministry to homeless. And they actually have a lot of ministry to people who have been affected by human trafficking.
Oh, wow.
Particularly women and children that
Wow.
have been taken out of that. They do a lot of ministry to them. So we may have a chance to come alongside them in some practical ways and help those ministries there too.
I've made that drive, that 9 hour drive. I think it was 7.5 for us. Maybe we went a little faster than we should have. I think we were whose car was that? I was thinking it was Morgan's, but I don't think it was Morgan's. I think it was somebody else's that drove a car very similar to Morgan's, a friend of ours at the time, that we did not take our own car. And I think it was because it was just Jessica and I that went, and Jessica's mom watched our kids, but for like the first day or something, we had friends that did, and they needed the van, and so it was like a whole thing. But we made the drive to New Orleans. It's not a bad drive at all.
It's not too bad.
New Orleans
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah, you're a foodie, right?
I am a dude.
Yeah.
The food in New Orleans is just stunning.
I know. We will definitely take advantage of some of the options while we get to be up there.
And I'm a big history guy as well. And New Orleans has shops. There are some bars that we did not actually go into, but there's one in particular in the French Quarter that has a really, really interesting history to it, but it is older than America.
Right.
Which is
Yes.
just like,
Yeah.
it's crazy when you start thinking about the history there.
Yeah.
Really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool. And, prior to my time at City on the Hill, I was working at a church in San Antonio, and 3 summers in a row, we did mission trips to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And however you want to pronounce it, I'm British, New Orleans,
Nolans.
New Orleans,
Yeah.
however you want to say it. And we did a lot of response to the hurricanes that had come through, Katrina at the time. And so it will be a different trip, but man, we had a blast as well.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun getting to explore the city. We'll be 4 blocks from the French Quarter, so
awesome.
we'll be able to walk there and go get some good New Orleans food.
It's so good.
It's gonna be great.
so good. The food is good. The coffee is good for
Yeah.
the most part. You have to pick the right places, but yeah, that's very exciting. I think that giving that opportunity to the middle schoolers, and obviously going out of country. I know it's not, whatever, but Puerto Rico is a substantial trip
Yes.
for a middle schooler, and
Yeah.
driving to New Orleans very different altogether, and much more manageable. And I'm excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, it'll be shorter. So we'll have, a full week to Puerto Rico and 5 days to New Orleans. The price difference is fairly significant. It's more than $1,000 cheaper to go to New Orleans than it is to fly, because of the flights primarily to Puerto Rico.
Right.
It's going to be an awesome time. Both trips are intergenerational, so we want people to know that. We want this to be something our adults come and be a part of. We're just kind of putting some limits on the age for middle school and high school, and that's why we're kind of trying to funnel them into those two trips. But yeah, we definitely would love for our adults to come. be part of that with us.
I think it's very exciting. How, if people watching, listening, want to know more information, what do they do?
Yeah, they can definitely email me, chris.cunnington@cityondthehilldfw.com. But also, both of these events will be on the Church Center app. So you can go on, read a little bit about it, sign up, and all that data's on there.
Love it. Love it. Well, we're very excited to launch this effort. And, for the many criticisms, sometimes well-deserved, that Southern Baptists have gotten, missions is not something to criticize the denomination for. We do missions extremely well.
Definitely.
Sin Relief is a phenomenal organization to work with, and I think those of you who participated last year know. But those of you who do that this year are going to be in for a real blessing.
Yeah.
And so, awesome stuff, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for stopping in.
Yep.
Coming up next, we have Kelsey Barker joining in for the final part of this program. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back into the final segment of this episode. I'm joined by Kelsey Barker, my arch nemesis.
Yes, I am here.
Yes.
I hope you fear me by now.
I do.
Pastor Bledsoe.
Wow. So, why did I invite you into this
I
episode?
don't know. You've avoided me for the last 2 episodes.
Have I?
Yeah, somehow. And at least
You weren't in the last episode?
No, I was not in the last episode.
I thought it was, wow. Okay.
Yeah, my fans messaged me and asked me why I wasn't in it.
I don't know. Go back and check the January episode.
I don't think that happened.
He was in the episode.
I'm not sure. Anyways,
fairly certain.
I'm here now, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm lying like a liar.
That's right.
But no, I just thought that the episode was so lovely so far. Great segments from Brian and George and Chris, and I thought to myself,
we need to knock that down a few notches.
I need to be on it and make it a little worse.
Yes.
No.
Well.
I'm actually here to talk about several different things happening later this month.
Let's hear about it.
First off, on the 18th, we have something very near and dear to my heart happening. It's our first night of worship for 2024.
Wow.
18th, 6 p.m. in the worship center. It's going to be a barn burner.
A barn burner.
I don't know what that means,
as they say.
But no, it's going to be a great time. We always come together. We usually have about 3 or 4 of these a year.
Yeah.
And coming together as a whole church body, as many bodies as we can fit inside the worship center at one time to worship God together is a wonderful time. We'll be taking communion.
Yep.
And, it's been interesting since we've started doing communion once a month on Sundays. It's given us this opportunity to make Night of Worship communion just a little different.
Yeah. It's one of the things I'm really excited about. When we started talking about making that switch to a monthly observing the Lord's Supper, that was one of the first questions that sort of popped up is like, well, what do we do about Night of Worship? And I still am very committed to doing it. And so we'll still just be twice in that month. So it won't even be one of those deals where we don't do it on the month that we have Night of Worship. But if you've been in services, since we've started that in October, you know that it's a little quicker. I mean, we have to fit it in within the scope of the service. We do it 3 times over all 3 services. And so it's something that we try to, I don't want to rush people, but we don't have the flexibility that we do for a night of worship.
Well, and I'll say for us personally as well, like you and I get stuck on stage during communion a lot. Like, I don't know if I've taken...
There have been a couple of them where I haven't.
Yeah.
The last 2, I think.
I don't think I've... And it's not like been a purposeful thing. It's just we get to the end and it's like, I
didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So... And it's just special how we have it administered with the elders and doing it all together. It's just special.
Yeah.
And I'll say about our nights of worship, and I'm sure I've said this before on this program, that it's just a very intimate time.
It is.
With our church body and, just being able to spend some extra time worshiping together. To be fully honest with you and our viewers / listeners, I don't know the theme yet because this is more the middle of January at the time of this theming. But it's been something I've been thinking and praying upon.
I like it.
But, I will say every time that we've gotten together, it feels like God kind of does something different
Yeah.
for our church that's meaningful. And it's a good way to start off the beginning parts of this year. Just
is.
spending about an hour to an hour 15, maybe an hour and a half. I don't know.
Well, so one of the things that I'm interested and kind of excited about this time around, we're doing it at 6 instead of 6:30.
6 p.m.
And historically, we've done all of our nights of worship at 6:30, with the exception of Good Friday night of worship, which is typically at 7 p.m.
Yeah, because we do it on Friday, and people
Right.
have to get there from work. And
Dinner and all that.
Yeah.
So 6, I think, is a really good time that we're going to see how this one goes. It may be a new time.
who knows?
But for families, especially with younger kids that want to still attend the night of worship, that gets you out of there, at the very latest by 7:30, which I feel like is still a very reasonable time.
I promise I won't go until 9.
Yeah.
Unless, just who knows?
And it could even be 7:15. I mean,
I'm
again,
totally
if we
kidding.
do the hour 15 marker, 7:15 is extremely reasonable.
Yep.
Unless you have like littles, and then you're probably not coming anyway. And so,
What was that again?
littles. And so,
Forget babies or toddlers.
no, or
It's-
what's the thing that James used to always call them?
Oh, I don't know.
They were, oh gosh, there was a name for it. It was like I can't remember it now. I'm gonna butcher it. It was like crib babies or crib crawlers or something. Like, there's some name for it. It was like kids who are still sleeping in cribs. Can't believe I can't think of it. He used to say it all the time. But comment down below if you remember what he used to say.
I'm better. I like littles better.
Yeah, littles might be the thing that I do.
That's
from now on. But all that to say, yeah, I think it gets you out and back home in a reasonable time.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday is a fine day to eat dinner a little bit earlier to allow you to get there at 6.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a later dinner family, then again, 7:30, like you go to dinner afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
And that works as well. So there's
Well, if you think about it, if you're one of our more, how do I even say this, charismatic members,
Yes.
you're just going to come to night of worship and burn all those calories.
Correct.
So you could really gorge yourself
Yeah,
beforehand if
absolutely.
you wanted to.
Run a marathon in
Yeah.
the worship center. Please
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Actually, don't do that. I will say, so let's talk a little bit about why it's at 6 p.m.
Oh, why?
Why is it at 6 p.m.?
I think we're supposed to keep some of that.
under wraps.
Under wraps.
I'm glad that I asked that in the
Yeah,
form of a
I'm
question.
glad you did.
and
So
not in a
come
statement.
to night of worship to find out why
find
it's
out
at
why.
6 p.m.
Secret, super secret.
Super secret
Yes,
times.
good.
Who knows?
What else? Wednesday.
What they'll encounter.
I mentioned at the first segment
Oh, yes.
something about my Wednesday night classes that I wanted to talk about.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So I have been for the last 3 years. It's been longer than that. It was
Yeah.
pre-2020. It was 2019.
Has
I
it been
think.
6 or 7 years?
It's been I think 5 going
Yeah.
on. This would be coming into my 5th year. I've been doing a Wednesday night class. Started with the Old Testament, moved to the New Testament. We took time off during the actual pandemic shutdown, much to my chagrin. And
times.
when we started back up, we kind of reformatted it into the worship center, which made things much easier. We did a cults class. We did a spiritual gifting class. And then we did Old Testament again. And then we did something called binge reading the Bible for the whole of last year.
Yeah, we did.
Which was based on the lectionary readings that are very common.
We were
in
all over the place.
Episcopalian and Anglican churches, and I enjoyed every one of those a lot. I've been really on the fence about when to start this thing back up on Wednesdays, and I know a few of you have asked. The goal right now, or the plan right now, is I am indefinitely not having a Wednesday night class. And I wanted to address why.
Gasp.
I will come back eventually. So it's not indefinitely doesn't mean never. I just don't have a time frame for when I'm coming back. I initially was going to come back in October, and we had freedom groups that were going on that needed the worship center, and then Michael's group needed the worship center, and then we got into the holidays, and it was I don't want to start something and then have to take off
Why
for several
not?
weeks.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not like you're busy during Christmas.
Right. And so then the plan was maybe sometime in January. And then I was like, you know what? February. That's when we're going to begin. Right after the freedom groups start. We'll give it a week, let the freedom groups kick off. One of the concerns that I have that I honestly had not even really thought about that Kelsey first mentioned and then Jamie mentioned
Oh, yeah.
as well in staff meeting was my voice. Since we've switched to 3 services in October, my voice definitely has significantly more wear and tear on it, is probably one way of saying it, than it had with 2. And factoring in a midweek service, more or less, where I'm talking for an hour and a half, just does not seem like probably the best.
Not the
plan.
wisest.
Yeah, and that is a very valid point that I had not considered at all. Part of my, I guess, delay in starting it up any sooner than this has been also. For all the other classes I've done, I've had like a real drive to like, we need to do this group. We need to study the Old Testament. We need to study the New Testament. We need to, the binge reading the Bible was great because it kind of gave you all of the Bible. We did Old and New Testaments together. The cults class, obviously, super important. Gifting, super important. But all of those are online now. And so, I was initially like, I'm going to come back and do the New Testament. I haven't done the New Testament in a while. But I'm like, I don't know that my views on the New Testament have really changed all that much since I filmed that. So like, I don't know why I would refilm them. It's all good material. The reason I did the Old Testament twice wasn't because I had views that changed necessarily, but because when I did the initial Old Testament class in 2019, we didn't film any of it. It was just like you had to come to it. So once I started the New Testament and we began filming and putting that on our YouTube channel, I was like, I really want to have Old Testament up. Yeah. And so that's what motivated me to do that again. And I'm glad I did that because, again, I think it's good material for our people who want a kind of survey of the whole thing. But at this point right now, there are a couple of things that intrigue me to consider doing, but I don't think the timing is right because I think one of them is a kind of a crash course in systematic theology. But in order for me to do it well and to do it justice, I am going to need more time to put into it than I currently have. Currently writing the Bible studies, the sermons, being a senior pastor, having a family, and also doing a PhD.
Yeah. And, I think, especially for this next year or so, as your PhD load is still quite substantial in, actual class time.
Yes.
I think it's a good opportunity for you to take a little break from that. And, also I'll say certainly that does not mean for all of our people who aren't currently taking a freedom group or, in a life Bible study that we don't have other openings and offerings. And, those are also going to be, there will be some things that will evolve in those times, I'll say.
Well, and I've got some ideas to fill some Wednesday night space. I'm working currently with 2 younger guys at City on a Hill that have preaching and teaching aspirations. I've thought about this is kind of breaking. I haven't even talked to Kelsey about this, but I've talked about, or I've thought about maybe having a small series of more or less sermons for them to come in and preach and to call our church to, hey, if you want a Wednesday service and you want to support one of the young men in our church who feel the call of God in their life to preach the word, then this would be a great opportunity to jump in and do that. And I think they're going to be they're very good communicators. So I think that Wednesday platform is a really good place to sort of get their bearings. They have some preaching experience, but to get their bearings, and then you'll probably start seeing that. Not probably, you will start seeing them with me on Sundays some too, occasionally, as I used to be with James. I've talked about that in the past before. So
and the Wednesday nights will also have a little card where you can grade them on how good you think their message is doing.
1 through 5.
Those are called care cards.
And you can be completely anonymous,
Completely anonymous.
Just make all the complaints and don't write a name or an email or a number.
Or anything.
Like a true...
We'd actually like you to write them in Spanish.
Yes, please.
To even...
These are all
jokes.
If you can't hear the sarcasm in my voice on that last part, listen again. We look forward to reading care cards, and I look forward to addressing complaints. I do not like drive-by shootings.
You do not.
And so put your name on the card.
Actually, that's not what the care cards are for. They're for us to care. And I think we're actually changing the name of those.
Yeah.
To Connect cards.
Connect cards. Breaking. You heard it here
breaking
first
news here.
on what the hell is happening.
Spracken.
No.
Speaking of breaking news, around Christmas time, I think it was actually Christmas Eve, we debuted some brand new churchandise City on a Hill merch, and we're
we
actually
may or may not be wearing it right now.
we're not wearing it. We are wearing
We
it.
may or may not be.
I don't know. I think we are.
I will say, if you are hoping to purchase the current merchandise that we are wearing, it is again sold out.
Well, I have breaking news
Breaking news.
that we ordered more of these hoodies and sweatshirts.
Whoa.
And so I'm not 100% sure when they're going to be getting in. And I'm also hoping that we're not going to be talking about this. By the time this episode drops, we'll be sold out again. But
It could be.
That could be. I mean, because, man, they flew off the shelves.
They did.
It also helped that we unleashed them in winter.
And it also has helped that winter has been horrifically cold.
Yeah, I'm ready for it not to be.
Me too.
But, hopefully you guys enjoy our merchandise.
So all that to say, lots of good things happening. Night of worship on the 18th, 6 p.m.
Yep.
Wednesday nights are going to be awesome without even my input. And we will have other offerings that are not currently happening right now. Again, the Bible study at 6:45, the Bible recap at 6:45, both happening on Wednesdays. But we do have some other ideas from other classes. Michael Lewis, if you've never taken one of his groups on apologetics, they're dynamite.
As I always say, it's not too late to apologize.
Ooh,
So
too late to apologize.
not too late to.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
lots of good stuff.
All
to
that
look forward
stuff
to.
is going to be on the Church Center app if you want to sign up. Great place for you to find out what's going on at our church, to give, to sign up for future things. And then also, I'll say, we don't say this always. If you're listening to our content or watching on YouTube and you're not following us on Instagram and Facebook, I would suggest you do so
Mash that subscribe button.
so that you can keep up with all of our current events.
I had to say it.
Yeah, you did.
I had to.
Anything else you want to tell the good people?
No, I just will say this. There, right now, when we're filming this, which is still in January, there are some just really exciting things happening behind the scenes at City on a Hill that we're not ready to talk about yet. I don't think it'd be the right time to talk about yet. There's still moving parts, but there are things that I think, if they materialize, are really exciting for the church. And this year could potentially be a very slowed down year in comparison to last year. Last year was insane. We grew a ton. We did a ton.
Baptized a lot of people.
Baptized a ton of people. There's so many. I don't expect to remodel and do all the things that we did last year to the same level. I don't expect that. But there are just some really exciting things happening in the church. And so it could be a slower year. It could be just as fast of a year.
Yeah.
And so I would just ask you who listen or watch to join us in prayer that God's will would be done at City on a Hill, that the gospel would be huge, that Jesus would be glorified, and that we do everything in obedience to him, and then whatever he does in response is we're willing to take.
I mean, what does it say in the word? Man makes his plan, but the Lord establishes his steps.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, I don't want to. I've prayed several times going to this year, Lord, if this is not what you have for us, just make it fail.
Yeah.
And we'll be all right with that.
We would be okay with that. So just pray with us.
Yeah.
And we would love that. We would love to be in prayer over that. And we're excited. There's just some great things on the horizon at City on a Hill.
Excited, nervous,
anxious.
I've got the jitters right now, Derek.
Freezing. It's because it's cold.
Yeah, it is very,
It's very
cold. Well, did I ruin the segment?
I don't think so.
Dang it.
This was great. We're so glad that you stopped in to hear, to be informed, and hopefully a little bit formed.
Hope you come back
by the things discussed here, and join us in that night of worship on the 18th. We'd love to have you there. And if you ever find yourself wondering what the hill is happening, you know where to come. We'll see you next time.